So we are here to just talk, just to sort of frame today's conversation, which is that we're talking today about things that are left of boom. We're not going to talk about the actual bad thing that could happen, right? Or the questionable thing that you observe. We're going to talk about all the things you should be doing to prevent that, right? It exists, left of boom exists in this sort of spectrum or this timeline, right? You've got the things leading up to an incident, or sometimes just an event or an anomaly, and then you have the things that follow that. This terminology comes from the military, clearly, but it's widely used in the IT industry to refer to sort of the life cycle of an event, right? There's all the things that led up to it, and then there's the event, and then there's the things that followed. When we think about, this is the NIST 6 functions here on the screen. When we think about the life cycle of a cybersecurity program, what's in a cybersecurity program, we're moving from left to right, and governing a cybersecurity program, that's a function that happens left of boom. It happens during an incident. It happens after an incident. But typically, left of boom processes begin to identify on the technical side. You need to find the systems. You need to understand where your data is. Then you move into protecting that data, the systems, the people. And then once you've done a pretty good job of protecting, you need to make sure that you have detective systems in place and that you have detections in place so that if an incident happens, right, if a bad thing happens, if a boom happens, you even know, right? Because unfortunately, if you don't have good detection in place, you won't learn about it until you hit that ransom message, right? But there's usually lots of opportunities to detect before that happens. So just in terms of importance, left of boom is typically the type of security that's less cost, right? It's higher return on investment. It's typically much cheaper to prevent a bad thing from happening than to actively thwart attackers in real time or clean up after them. So that's the focus, right? Is prevention. Also, even if it had nothing to do with cost, organizations have a responsibility to protect their stakeholders. So you are actually, and Chris in a moment I'm sure is going to have something to say about this, but not being an attorney, I'm just going to say the thing I say, which is organizations and the stakeholders in them, they have a responsibility. They have a due care responsibility to care, and then to do something about protecting to prevent harm, not to recover from harm, right? And how people can be held accountable depends on industry and where you are in the world. But ultimately, organizations and in some cases, actual managers or executives in that business can be held accountable for failures of due care and due diligence. And it's not just the CISO. The CISO is the named officer, if you have one, and hopefully you do. But other people can also be held accountable as well. So that's why there's lots of standards for this. We'll talk more about that a little later. But if you're looking for a reference, CIS controls are typically the place I recommend service providers look, because they're prioritized. You start at the cheap stuff at the top, expensive stuff at the bottom. That's a great way to go. You could also look at NIST CSF, which is what the federal government here in the U.S. has been recommending. And then you've got the higher level standards, NIST 853 and ISO 27000, which of course has international renown.